When my sister Rina called me that night, her voice trembled like the last thread holding a curtain in place before it falls. Auntie, can I stay with you for a while? Just until things settle down? I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, my mind already racing. I could hear the faint hum of traffic outside and the clock ticking on the wall, both sounds oddly louder than her voice. It had been years since she'd called me Auntie with that kind of softness. Of course, I said without hesitation. You don't even have to ask. At that time, I didn't know that saying yes would cost me more than money. It would cost me trust, peace, and a part of my family I could never fully get back. Normal life set up. Before Rina moved in, my life was simple, predictable, and, in its own quiet way, content. I ran a small home-based catering business, Nita's Kitchen, out of the front portion of our old family home. My dad had built that house himself back in the 70s, all solid teak doors and mosaic floors, the kind of craftsmanship you don't see anymore. Dad used to say, "A home isn't just walls, Nita. It's memory, breath, and argument all together." He wasn't wrong. After his health declined, I moved back in to take care of him. My husband Imran had passed away 5 years earlier in a road accident, and I had no children, so caring for Dad filled that empty space in my life. He became my world again, just as I had been his when I was little. When Rina called that night, Dad was already asleep. I peeked into his room before answering her. He looked peaceful, his hand resting on the worn Quran by his bedside. Rina and I had always been close as children. She was 2 years younger, always more dramatic, more beautiful, more daring. Where I was cautious, she was impulsive. Where I chose silence, she chose noise. But after she married Fahim, a charming but restless man, we drifted apart. They moved to Karachi, started a boutique, and we only spoke occasionally. I had heard whispers of trouble between them, but every time I asked, she'd brush it off. Now, it seemed, the storm had finally broken. Rina arrived 2 days later, dragging 2 large suitcases and a cloud of perfume into the house. She looked fragile, thinner, eyes swollen from crying, but her grip was still strong. "I knew you'd understand," she said, voice muffled against my shoulder. Dad was sitting in the living room watching television when she walked in. His eyes lit up like an old lamp coming back to life. "Ah, the prodigal daughter returns," he said with that teasing smile of his. She laughed, though I could tell it was half-forced. Still, it warmed the house in a way I hadn't realized we'd been missing. Within a week, Rina had made herself at home. She'd redecorated the guest room, taken over half the kitchen, and started helping me with my catering orders. Her energy was infectious. She told me it made her feel useful again. "You've built something good here, Nita. You've got talent. Maybe we can expand, open a real cafe." The idea made me laugh at first. Me, a widow in her late 30s, running a cafe. But her enthusiasm made it seem possible, and Dad, ever supportive, encouraged us. "You two working together?" he said one night, his eyes gleaming. "That's what I always wanted." And so, slowly, we became a team. We named it Sister's Table, a small catering brand that specialized in homemade comfort food. Rina handled marketing. She was good at social media, charming customers, getting attention. I focused on cooking and logistics. Business began to grow faster than I could have imagined. Orders doubled. We started catering weddings, corporate lunches, birthdays. Rina said she wanted to help with the finances, so I gave her access to our joint business account. I thought, foolishly, that that's what sisters did. The first clue: suspicion. Looking back now, the first clue was small, almost laughably small. One night while doing the accounts, I noticed a payment missing from a corporate client. When I asked Rina about it, she said, "Oh, that one paid in cash. I used it to cover delivery expenses." Her tone was so casual that I didn't question it further. After all, she was helping so much. But then it happened again. A few small transactions here and there, not huge amounts, but enough to raise a quiet unease in me. Around that same time, Rina started dressing differently. New handbags, new shoes, her nails always freshly done. When I teased her about it, she laughed. "Oh, these? Just old stuff I found in the back of my closet." Still, a small knot formed in my stomach that wouldn't quite untangle. Dad too began to notice changes. "She's been on her phone a lot lately," he said one morning while sipping tea. "I hope she's not talking to that husband of hers again." I shrugged. "Maybe she's just lonely, Abba. She's trying to adjust." He nodded, though his eyes remained thoughtful. Weeks turned into months, the business flourished, but so did Rina's confidence and her control. She started taking over client calls, making decisions without me. When I questioned her, she'd smile sweetly and say, "Api, don't worry about these little things. You just focus on cooking. I'll handle the rest." The way she said it sounded loving, but there was something else beneath. A quiet tone of superiority, as if I'd become her employee. Then, one evening while cleaning the study, I found an envelope addressed to her from a lawyer. It was half open, the corner peeking out from under a pile of receipts. Inside was a draft of a property division document, something about Dad's assets and the house. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. I remember standing there, my hands shaking, my breath shallow. Dad was still alive. Why would she need something like that now? When I asked her about it later that night, she looked startled, then annoyed. "You were snooping through my things?" "It was lying on the table, Rina. What's going on?" "Nothing. Just legal stuff. I'm trying to sort out my affairs in case Fahim files for divorce. Don't make it dramatic." Her eyes darted away as she spoke. And even though I wanted to believe her, something inside me whispered that my sister, the girl who once held my hand crossing busy roads, was no longer the same person standing in front of me. That whisper wouldn't leave me. The day everything changed was quiet, deceptively so. The kind of day that starts with sunlight streaming through lace curtains, the scent of cardamom tea, and ends with a silence that feels like grief. It was a Tuesday morning. I had just finished packing lunch orders for a local office. Rina had gone out early, saying she needed to meet a supplier. By noon, I received a call from our bank. The manager, a kind man who often helped me with business paperwork, sounded uneasy. "Madam, I just wanted to confirm, you authorized the transfer to Rina's personal account, correct?" My fingers froze around the phone. "Transfer? What transfer?" He hesitated. "3 transfers, actually, over the past 2 weeks, from the business account, a total of about 8 lakh rupees. I felt the room tilt. My heart pounded so loud that I could barely hear him. No, I didn't authorize that. Can you please freeze the account immediately?" He agreed, his tone shifting to professional concern. "Of course, but you'll need to come in and sign documents. Bring your co-signer as well." My co-signer, Rina. I sat down, trembling. 8 lakh rupees? That was months of savings, a client's advance payments, our emergency fund, everything. When Rina came home that evening, humming as if the world was made of music, I was waiting at the kitchen table. The teapot between us had gone cold. "Rina," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The bank called." She stopped mid-step, her eyes flicking to my face, searching for how much I knew. "Oh," she said lightly. "What about?"
about the transfers from our account to yours. The silence that followed stretched thin like a thread about to snap. She set her purse down slowly. I needed the money. Needed it? For what? You said we were reinvesting everything into the business. I am, but I also have debts, Nida. You know what Fahim left me with. I was drowning. I only took what I earned. What you earned? Rina, we built this together. Every order, every rupee, we agreed it stays in the business until we stabilize. Her expression shifted from guilt to defiance in a heartbeat.
You think I don't deserve a share? You've always acted like you were the only responsible one, the perfect daughter, the good one. I worked hard too. I'm just taking what's mine. Her words cut deeper than I expected, because underneath her anger, I heard something darker, resentment, the kind that festers quietly for years. You could have talked to me, I said softly. You wouldn't have listened. You never do. Then she turned and walked away, leaving me alone with the sound of her heels clicking against the floor, a rhythm of betrayal. For the next few days, we barely spoke. The house, once filled with the smell of food and laughter, felt heavy. Dad sensed it immediately. You two fighting again? He asked one evening, trying to lighten the air. You were inseparable when you were little. I forced a smile. Just a misunderstanding, Abba. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me. He always could tell when something was wrong. A week later, Rina's behavior changed completely. She became distant, secretive. I'd hear her whispering on the phone at night. The door locked. Then came the day I'll never forget, the day Dad collapsed. He had been sitting in the veranda reading his newspaper when I heard the thud. I rushed out, shouting his name. Rina ran from the kitchen, panic on her face. We got him to the hospital. The doctor said it was a mild stroke. Treatable, but he needed rest. For the next week, I stayed by his side. Rina handled things at home. Or so I thought. When Dad was discharged, he came home weaker but alert. One night, I found him talking to Rina in his room. His tone was calm, but there was something tense about it. You shouldn't pressure me, Rina, he said quietly. I'm not pressuring you, Abba, she replied quickly. I'm just saying it's better to settle things now, you know, in case something happens later. I froze outside the door. Settle things? What things? I've already written my will, he said firmly. It's with the lawyer. Nothing more to discuss. But, Abba, enough. His voice, though weak, carried authority. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. She made tea for him, even kissed his forehead. But I saw the stiffness in her smile. A few days later, Dad passed away in his sleep, peacefully. The doctor said his heart simply gave out. I don't remember much of that day except the numbness. The house filled with relatives, condolences, whispers of prayers. Rina cried louder than anyone, loud enough to drown out my own silence. After the funeral, the lawyer called. We were to meet at his office for the reading of Dad's will. Rina dressed carefully that day, elegant, somber. She sat beside me, holding my hand, her nails perfectly painted in muted gray. The lawyer opened a brown file, cleared his throat, and began reading. To my daughter, Nida, who cared for me selflessly, I leave the family home and its contents. To my daughter, Rina, I leave a small share of my savings account. My throat tightened. Tears welled. Not because of the inheritance, but because Dad had acknowledged me, seen me. But then the lawyer paused, frowning. However, there appears to be a newer document, signed just last month, that replaces this. My heart sunk. He opened another file. This one had Rina's handwriting all over the margins. The new will stated that both daughters were to receive equal shares, including the house. Rina's eyes flicked toward me, almost daring me to question it. That can't be right. Dad never mentioned changing anything. He signed it in front of witnesses, the lawyer said, carefully. I hesitated. Who were the witnesses? He hesitated. 2 men from your catering staff. I stared at her. You forged it. Her lips curved, just slightly. Careful, Auntie. That's a serious accusation. How could you? My voice broke. After everything, after what he gave us. She shrugged. He always favored you. I just made it fair. That night, I sat in Dad's empty room, staring at his Quran on the bedside table. My tears blurred the ink of the verse that said, "Do not consume one another's wealth unjustly." And I swore, not out of anger, but out of duty, that I would not let her get away with it. This wasn't just about money. It was about truth, about honoring the man who built this home with his hands. And if I had to fight my own sister to protect it, I would. The night after the will reading, I couldn't sleep. Every corner of the house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by memories that refused to fade. Dad's voice, soft but firm, echoed in my head. Never let greed divide your family, Nida. Whatever happens, stay honest. I sat on the veranda until dawn, watching the sky turn from black to pale gold, my heart aching with questions. How could Rina do this? How could my own sister, the girl I'd protected, fed and comforted, betray me like this? The next morning, I went through Dad's old drawer. It was filled with his neatly folded papers, electricity bills, medical reports, small notes written in Urdu. Then I found it, an envelope labeled Original Will 2024. My breath caught. Inside was the first will, the one that gave me the house. The lawyer had said the new one replaced it, but as I held the old document, I noticed something odd. The signature on the new one, the forged one, had been scanned, not signed. I could see faint pixelation under the pen strokes. That was the proof I needed. That evening, when Rina came home, she acted normal. Too normal. She hummed while she cooked, laughed loudly over nothing, and kept glancing at me like she knew I was breaking inside. I said nothing. Not yet. Instead, I visited the lawyer the next day and showed him both documents. His brows furrowed. "You're right," he said. After comparing the signatures under a magnifying glass, the ink pattern doesn't match real handwriting. It's printed, not penned. "Can you testify to that?" I asked. "If necessary, yes. But this could get ugly." I smiled faintly. It already has. Over the next week, I quietly gathered evidence. I checked the catering staff names listed as witnesses. Both had suddenly resigned a month ago and moved out of the city. Suspicious. Then, one of our old helpers, Salim, pulled me aside. "Baji, I didn't want to say anything, but Rina Madam gave those men money. I saw it." My chest tightened. "You're sure?" He nodded. "She said they just needed to sign some papers for Abaji." That was enough. I filed a complaint with the property tribunal. But I didn't tell Rina, not until the court sent her a notice. When she received it, her calm mask shattered. "You filed a case against me?" she yelled, slamming the paper on the table. "I had to," I said quietly. "You forged Abba's will." "You have no proof." "I have the lawyer's report. I have Salim's statement, and the bank records showing your transfers." Her face drained of color. You're doing this to ruin me." "No," I said, trembling, but firm. "I'm doing this to stop you from ruining what's left of our family." For a moment, I thought she'd break down, but instead she gave a bitter laugh. "You think the court will listen to you? You, the soft-spoken one who always forgives? You don't have the guts to fight me." I looked her straight in the eye. I didn't, until now. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. In those days, I threw myself into work. Clients noticed the tension but said nothing. Hina and Aisha, my nieces, started avoiding us both, confused and scared. At night, I'd hear Rina on the phone crying, pleading with someone to fix it. But I didn't waver. When the day came, I stood in court, my hands shaking, as I gave my statement. I showed the old will, the fake one, the expert report, and the bank transfers. The judge, an elderly man with kind eyes, listened quietly. Then Rina was called. She looked beautiful but pale, her confidence replaced by fear. "Miss Rina," the judge said, "did you prepare or sign this will?" "No, Your Honor. My father asked me to type it. He signed it himself." "Do you have proof?" He told me he would talk to the lawyer." The lawyer stood up. "That is false, Your Honor. Mr. Rahim never contacted me after the original will. I have his diary entries confirming that." Rina's eyes darted around the room. She looked trapped. When it was over, the judge announced his verdict. "The court finds sufficient evidence of forgery and misappropriation. The original will of 2024 stands valid." My breath left me in a rush. Rina stood frozen, then turned to me, eyes blazing with a mix of fury and sorrow. "Are you happy now?" she hissed. "No," I whispered. "I'm heartbroken." Weeks passed. Rina moved out quietly, taking only her clothes. She didn't say goodbye. The house felt hollow, but peaceful, like a wound starting to heal. One evening, as I was cleaning Dad's room, I found an old letter under his Quran. It was addressed to both of us. It said, "My daughters, if you ever fight over this house, remember, walls can be rebuilt, but love cannot. Choose peace, not pride." Tears blurred my vision. I whispered, "Abba." I tried.
Months later, I saw Rina again, unexpectedly. I was catering a charity event at a community hall, and she walked in, holding files, wearing a modest suit. She looked tired, older. When she saw me, she froze. I waited for her to walk away, but she didn't. She approached slowly and said in a trembling voice, "Appy, I wanted to say I'm sorry." I looked at her, unsure. Her eyes, once sharp with envy, now carried humility. She said I was angry. "I thought you had everything. Abba's love, respect, peace. I thought I had to take what I wanted. But I lost everything instead." I sighed softly. "You didn't lose everything, Rina. You still have a sister, if you want her." She covered her face and began to cry. And for the first time in years, I held her again, not as an enemy, but as blood. That night, as we sat together under the veranda light, sipping tea, silence filled the air. Not heavy this time, but healing. "Do you think Abba would forgive me?" she asked quietly. "He already has," I said. "That's what fathers do." She smiled faintly. "And you?" "I'm trying." And for the first time, I meant it. In the end, justice was served, but mercy completed it. Because revenge might give peace to the mind, but forgiveness brings peace to the soul.
It's strange, isn't it? How life has a way of circling back. One moment you're building walls to protect yourself, and the next, You're standing at the same gate you once locked, wondering if it's time to open it again. After that night, Rina began visiting occasionally. At first, she'd just come to drop off something, a small container of biryani, some old photos she had found, or a simple salam. But each visit softened the air between us. I still remember one afternoon, late autumn, when the sunlight filtered through the mango tree outside, scattering gold on our veranda floor. She sat there quietly, watching the sparrows pick at crumbs. It was the same spot where we used to sit with Abba, sharing chai and laughter. Except now, there was a silence, a humble, fragile kind of peace. She looked up and said, "Api, I'm trying to start over. I got a small accounting job." I smiled. "That's good, Rina. It's not much, but it's mine. I don't want to take anything from you again." I didn't reply right away. I just watched the sunlight on her face, softer now like all her sharp edges had melted. I finally said, "You don't have to prove anything to me. You just have to live honestly. That's all Abba ever wanted from us." The next few months unfolded quietly. I returned to my catering business with renewed focus. Somehow, the food started tasting better again, or maybe I just began to taste life again. Clients came back, orders grew, and one evening as I packed boxes for a wedding event, Rina walked in and said, "Do you need help?" My heart paused for a moment. That same phrase months ago had marked the beginning of everything. But this time, it sounded different. Not as a step into my life to take, but a hand reaching to give. I said softly, "Sure, you can help." And that night, we worked side by side like the old days when we were kids helping Ammi roll samosas in the kitchen. She folded boxes, I sealed them. And every now and then, our eyes met. No words, just understanding.
Weeks later, she showed me a small apartment she had rented on her own. It wasn't fancy, just a single bedroom, a balcony, and a view of the city lights. But she was proud. "It's mine," she said, smiling shyly. I said, "It suits you, simple and peaceful." Then she hesitated, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know if I deserve peace after what I did." I took her hand. "Peace isn't something you deserve, Rina. It's something you earn by facing the truth." She looked at me with tearful eyes. "And you? Have you found peace?" I smiled faintly. "I think I'm learning how to." One Sunday morning, we visited Abba's grave together. The sky was grey, the wind soft. Rina carried white flowers. I brought rose petals. We stood there in silence for a long time. Then Rina whispered, "I used to think you were lucky because Abba trusted you more, but now I know he didn't love us differently. He just saw us differently because we were different people." Her honesty broke something inside me. I nodded, tears streaming freely. He loved us both, and maybe this was his test, to see if we'd remember that love even when it hurt. Rina smiled weakly. "Then we failed him." I looked up at the grey sky. "No, we just took the long road back." Over the next few years, our relationship quietly repaired itself. It was never as it once was, no easy laughter or constant chatter, but there was something deeper now, respect. She began to help me manage the accounts for my business, this time with full transparency. Sometimes when I caught her cross-checking every receipt twice, I'd smile to myself. She'd notice too and say with a playful grin, "What, you don't trust your accountant?" And I'd laugh softly. "Now I do." There were still moments when memories stung. Sometimes I'd find a receipt from the old days, one of those transfers she made behind my back, and I'd feel that familiar ache. But instead of bitterness, I'd whisper a prayer. Ya Allah, thank you for saving me before greed consumed both our souls. Because that's the thing about betrayal. It burns everything around it. But if you survive, you come out purified, wiser, and gentler. One evening, I was invited to speak at a women's business seminar. They wanted me to share my journey as an entrepreneur. But I didn't talk about money or clients or profits. I talked about trust. I said, sometimes the person who betrays you isn't a stranger. It's someone who knows exactly where your heart is kept. But that doesn't mean you close your heart forever. It means you learn to guard it with wisdom, not walls. When the audience applauded, I looked at the back row and saw Rina there, smiling proudly, tears glimmering in her eyes. In that moment, I realized something important. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It just means you've decided to stop being haunted by it. Years have passed now. The house feels full again, not because of people, but because of peace. The same veranda where I once cried alone is now a place of laughter, where Rina's kids visit, playing with my own nieces. Sometimes, when I see her helping in the kitchen, joking with the helpers, or praying quietly in the corner, I think of Abba's words again. Walls can be rebuilt, but love cannot be. Maybe that's what healing really is. Choosing love again after it broke you. One night as we sat outside under the moonlight, Rina turned to me and said, Appy, thank you for not giving up on me. I smiled. You're my sister. Giving up was never an option. She leaned her head on my shoulder, like she used to when we were little. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. The city hummed softly in the distance. And I thought, maybe this was what Abba wanted all along. Not for us to win against each other, but to find our way back to each other.
Sometimes life doesn't give us clean endings. Sometimes the people who hurt us are the same ones who once held our hand when we were scared of the dark. And that's what makes forgiveness so complicated and so powerful. When I look back now, I don't see Rina as the sister who betrayed me. I see her as a woman who got lost, blinded by fear, guilt, and desperation, and somehow, by the mercy of Allah, found her way home again. If I had spent my life clinging to anger, I would have lost more than money or property. I would have lost myself. So I chose to let go. Not for her, but for me. Because peace doesn't come when others say sorry. It comes when you decide to stop bleeding from the same wound. And maybe that's what healing really means. Not forgetting what happened, but remembering it without breaking anymore. Now when I walk through my father's old garden, I can almost hear his voice in the wind. Walls can be rebuilt, but love cannot be. Those words used to make me cry. Now they make me smile. Because in the end, we did rebuild. Not walls, but bridges. And that's what I carry forward. So, tell me, have you ever been betrayed by someone you thought would protect you? Did you choose to forgive, or did you walk away? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If my story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more stories like this reach those who might need a little reminder that even in the deepest pain, there is always a path to peace.